Hi, my name is Keisha Clark and I graduated in 2017. I chose to attend Erikson because it's a known leader in the field of child development, but it's also dedicated to creating leaders in the fields of child development, early childhood, and social work, all while still advocating for better outcomes for children across the world. Being a member of the Erikson community has allowed for me to grow from a professional in child development to a budding leader. I'm grateful for the experience and all the wonderful alum that I've met. Congratulations on 55 years of service to children.
Hello, my name is Carol Huntsinger, a graduate of the first PhD class at Erikson Institute in 1991. I chose Erikson because I had heard Barbara Bowman and Lucinda Lee Katz speak at professional meetings. I was very impressed with their perspectives and their knowledge and their wisdom and their vision for early childhood and culture. I decided to take 2 infant studies classes with Fran Stott, and she encouraged me to join the first doctoral cohort. That led to my very successful career in college teaching and research on parenting and culture and early math. And I thank you, Erikson. I'm very grateful for your giving me the opportunity and the background I needed for this career. Thank you.
My name is Natalie Dowdell, and I am an Erikson alum from the class of 2019. I studied child development and children's law and policy, and I chose to attend Erikson because I studied child development as an undergrad, and I wanted to become more well-versed in the field. But I got so much more than that at Erikson. The connections I was able to make, the people, not only the students, but the faculty members and staff were just wonderful and helped me to grow so much as a person and as a professional. And I just feel like my experience at Erikson was invaluable. So thank you so much for everything, everyone who's been a part of Erikson, everyone who was a part of creating Erikson, and happy 55th anniversary.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Alexander, and I'm a 2017 Barbara Bowman Leadership Fellow. Erikson has prepared me to sit at any table, to walk into any room, and have the difficult conversations about racial equity. Erikson has also prepared me to ask the questions and answer the questions related to quality, access, and equity. Yes, Erikson has taught me to quay all day. Happy 55th anniversary, Erikson.
Hello, and welcome to Erikson Institute's 55th anniversary celebration. I'm your host, Cassandra Wooden-Seawood, MSW student and Erikson student body president. In our short and sweet program today, we'll focus on Erikson's efforts to preserve the history of the field of early care and education through an ambitious new podcast and secure our future through deep investments that support our youngest children, their families, and communities. And I wanted to give you a little insight on my journey here. I'm a second time around master's degree student, first in clinical mental health. And in this journey, I chose Erikson because I felt they were the greatest option when it came down to early childhood and me learning more about infant education as well as mental health as it relates to my field of study. Again, when I joined Erikson, my thought was, I'm an older woman, I'm a grandmother, how's this journey gonna fit in for me? And what I have been here at Erikson is embraced. I have been empowered and I am working towards my goal, and my goal is real. To kick things off, I'm going to hand it over to Elenne Song, Chair of Erikson's Board of Trustees. Ellen?
Welcome everyone to Erikson Institute's 55th anniversary celebration. It is wonderful to see you all here today. This is my first virtual luncheon as chair of Erikson's Board of Trustees, and I'd like to thank our stellar steering committee, Ikram Goldman, Diane Meagher, Kathy Pick, and Sandy Sterling for their hard work, and the host committee and sponsors for their extraordinary generosity. I also want to thank our dedicated Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, alumni, and donors who have helped us achieve this milestone in our mission to strengthen Erikson's impact in a world that desperately needs more compassion and steely resolve to make the changes that our children, all children, need to succeed. It's a story that started 55 years ago and which I know will continue far into the future. I believe everyone, but especially young children, should feel a sense of possibility in their lives, and Erikson attracts people who want to turn possibilities into realities. You can support our efforts by making a gift today at the website shown on your screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Throughout our program, we'll hear from a number of alumni about their Erikson experience. First up, we have a reflection from Life Trustee Virginia Bobins, who graduated from Erikson in 1991.
Hello, my name is Virginia Bobins. I was a student at Erikson many years ago. Why Erikson means so much to me is because how it changed my life. I went to interview with Barbara Bowman when my son had left for college, and I thought I wanted to go back and work with children. So I went in to visit with Barbara, and Barbara talked with me for a few minutes, and she said, "When was the last time you got on the floor with children?" Because I was in my early 40s at that time. And I said, "Well, it's been a few years since I've done that." But of course, Barbara was right on target, and she said, "Well, come back and visit with me in a year after you volunteered with children." I laughed because I thought, I'm sure she thought she'd never see me again. But we've become dear friends over the years. I went back to visit with her. I started the program. And Erikson is so special because it just doesn't teach you to be someone to work with children and understand them and educate them, but also it develops the person.
My name is Jim Gill, and I am an Erikson alum from 1992, which is in the previous century. It does not seem that long ago. I chose to study at Erikson because it is a program that focuses on how children learn, which is timeless. Children learn through play, including music play. And my studies at Erikson helped me think about how to create environments and situations in which the best kind of learning, joyous learning, can take place.
It is so inspiring to hear about the impact Erikson has had on its alumni. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to Erikson Institute's 5th president, Mariana Souto-Manning.
Thank you, Cassandra. I am Mariana Souto-Manning, president of Erikson Institute. I am also an Afro-Latina first-generation immigrant, a former early childhood teacher, a mother, and importantly, the granddaughter of a woman who was never schooled because of an unjust system rooted in Brazil's history of slavery. She was pushed very early into domestic work and never had the opportunity to be in school. She is one of the key reasons I came to Erikson, because I am inspired to do right and to ensure that other children like her have opportunities. Erikson's history is rich, Our 55-year history is a history of transforming the early childhood workforce, of nurturing the mental health of young children and their families, of ensuring that children, all children, receive equitable opportunities. I am excited to lead Erikson into a new era by redefining our role in creating a just society by asking, how can the future teach the future? Young children are the future. And at Erikson, I want to build on the long-standing foundation of our mission and envision a future that doesn't yet exist, a future of justice and equity. To do that, we must commit to creating true equity in a nation and a field that have been centered in whiteness. In terms of equity for young children, we must ask, what does a future of true equity look like for Erikson, for our students, children, families, communities, faculty, staff, trustees? First, we need to focus on a North Star, orienting toward justice and freedom. This North Star vision will continue to guide us even when our journey gets hard. This vision is grounded in the acknowledgement of the harm that has been done to children of color, their families and communities by racist systems, historically and contemporarily. We must look clearly and bravely at the reality that whiteness and consequently racism have caused huge disparities in our educational, economic, health, human service, and housing systems. We must accept that these disparities have disproportionately impacted Black, Indigenous, children, families, and communities of color. Once we acknowledge that harm, we can move forward using a restorative justice lens that seeks not to blame or cast fault, but to build up new systems that benefit all. A just society allows everyone, including those who have been unjustly privileged, to live a more authentic and humane life. To move forward together, everyone at Erikson, leadership, staff, faculty, and students must share this vision. Our shared goal will keep us united. Second, we must take concrete actions, including examining the core pillars of our work to see where we can improve and innovate. Some examples are the academic realm. We are creating a specialized early childhood education licensure cohort program, preparing teachers of color as an immediate, tangible form of engaging in restorative justice, of righting wrongs. The teachers will not pay for tuition, but will continue to teach for 4 years in communities that have been acutely impacted by systemic racism. This new program will reimagine our curriculum to integrate and streamline the essential elements of an Erikson education and ensure that an equity lens is present throughout. The collective impact of the cohort over 5 years will influence the lives of thousands of our youngest children and will unfalteringly impact their families and communities as well. In the policy area, our Policy and Leadership Department recently examined and reimagined its mission, focus, and structure to grow in new directions using a theory of change model. The model helped our team zero in on 2 of the most influential barriers to equity: the lack of supportive policies for children's health and development, and the chronic underfunding and inequitable distribution of early childhood resources. The team also prioritized the populations it will focus on in light of those populations identified by the Illinois Early Learning Council, including children who have disproportionately been adversely affected by poverty, immigration status, parental incarceration, and more. On the clinical side, we expanded clinical assessment services that are critical for the Latinx community in La Villita by bringing a bilingual diagnostic program to our Little Village location, providing a culturally relevant and sustaining approach that's convenient to families and children experiencing developmental challenges. These are services that are rarely available through existing systems. We have also worked tirelessly to secure Medicaid payment for our clinical services so that we can reach more families who are living in low and no income communities. In terms of research, Erikson continues to lead in research on home-based childcare thanks to the work of Juliette Bromer, whose scholarship focuses on the field of home-based childcare. Dr. Bromer recently published a report on the impact of the pandemic on this sector, which employs many women of color and serves many families and communities of color. I am so proud and honored to lead Erikson at this pivotal time. I am committed to challenging us in the areas we need to strengthen, as well as to affirming those aspects of Erikson that have always drawn talented and committed people to join us in our work. I hope you will join us too in creating a more equitable and just world, one where every teacher is ready to build on the brilliance and ingenuity of every child. Together, we can build a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. I'm so excited to be studying at Erikson during your tenure. The future certainly looks bright from here. And here's a message from another illustrious Erikson alum.
My name is Patricia Alexander Brady. I'm from the master's class of 1980 and the doctoral program of 1999. Erikson gave me a platform to have my voice heard as a Black mother, as a wife, and most importantly, as a professional. I was able to really help understand what was happening with so many low-income minority families who were living in poverty. I had an opportunity to work closely with those families to understand what it was like to live day by day and try to be the best parent you could be. I was able to help develop programs to support educators who work very closely with those families on a local, state, and national level. The other thing that I'm really grateful for Erikson is that they gave me a seat at the table to be a voice for those families who could not speak for themselves. Erikson, you have done a great job in training professionals like myself to speak up, to help develop policies, to make life better, not to want things to be better, but to demand better changes for low-income minority families. Thank you, Erikson Institute.
Hi, my name is Susie Kiphart, and I just want to thank everyone at Erikson, and I appreciate so much all I got there. I really got so much. Maureen and Maria were my teachers and mentors, and of course Barbara is still my mentor, even though she may not know it. I value every word she says. She's amazing. I learned how to answer my questions when I was at Erikson, my questions about children, and I had a lot of them. And I've used those answers and that information in everything I've done throughout my life. And I just thank deeply all the people who have since then made Erikson thrive for other people, bringing the model of education, which is so wonderful, and have helped the country and even some in the nation know that taking the very best care of children that we can, no matter where they are or who they are, is the answer, no matter what the question. So congratulations and thank you so much. I am so deeply appreciative.
From the launch of Head Start to the Preschool for All initiative, these last 55 years have been transformative in the field, and Erikson has played an integral part in the journey. To tell the story of what has been learned, why it is so important, and perhaps most significantly, where we are going, Erikson is partnering with PRX, the production company behind some of the most popular audio shows in the world, like The Moth and This American Life. Erikson's podcast series will chronicle the history of early childhood care and education and serve as a vital resource for educators, parents, caregivers, social workers, and policymakers nationwide. So let's just take a sneak peek or a sneak listen.
The first 1,800 days of life are the most intense period of every child's development. So why doesn't America make the most of it? And why is it so challenging to raise a child here in the States?
We're in the middle of a childcare crisis in the U.S.
Quality childcare is expensive. In many states, it costs more per year than a public university.
Many home daycares were stretched beyond their limits during the pandemic, taking on extra costs and longer hours.
51% of parents surveyed in Chicago report serious problems caring for their kids. Many say they're struggling to help their children adjust to the changes.
COVID didn't do a lot of good things, but the one thing that it did do for early childhood was to show how broken and inequitable the systems that are designed for young children actually are.
From last March to April, the childcare sector lost more than 350,000 jobs, and the average childcare worker made about $25,000 per year in 2020. The combination of dwindling supply, along with soaring demand for childcare, especially during the pandemic, is resulting in the she-cession, as women shoulder their responsibilities and leave the workforce. So, understanding how we got here to today's fractured system and its impact on our children in the most vulnerable times of their life means we've got to look back at how childcare and the industry it built got started in the first place.
There was an increase in the number of programs and concern and interest in young children, beginning with Head Start and going through the 1990s as we spent more and more resources on research and on actual programs. That interest has receded.
And throughout the decades, childcare has changed, from nannies for the wealthy to widespread pre-K programs. But depending on who you are, those services can look very different and have lasting effects on how children develop later in life.
Although well-intentioned, Head Start really started from the war on poverty and from that cultural deficit mindset. We have developed since then to think about difference as diversity, but that still centers whiteness.
So, where do we go from here?
This moment in time, both at the state levels and at the federal government level, we can see if we don't invest, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and that's the definition of insanity, right? Or we can say we do need to invest and treat this like a public good.
I'm Natalie Moore, a reporter who covers race, class, and communities in Chicago. Together with the Erikson Institute, we'll take a deep dive into the first 1,800 days of every child's life, from birth to kindergarten. A look at how America got to where we are today, where we're going, and the children who live with the fallout. Join us in 2022, wherever you get your podcast.
And now we will visit the home of Erikson co-founder Barbara T. Bowman, a living legend in the early care and education field. Barbara is reflecting on the podcast project with Natalie Moore.
Thank you, Cassandra. Barbara, why is it important to tell the story of the field and Erikson's contributions?
Well, you know, Erikson's contribution has been significant. And it's significant, I think, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think we identified the right variables that affect how we educate professionals to work with young children and their families. And it's important to get that information out, that it was important 50 years ago. It's still important that we spend time and effort figuring out what's the best way to educate professionals so they can do the best possible job. I think it's also important that we learn something from our past. We've been through some of these stressful times before, and we've made good responses, like during the war. We've also made some not so good responses. when we've cut programs and made it more difficult for families to survive. So I think that going over some of those past experiences and seeing what can be learned from them is a very useful thing. And then I think the field doesn't really understand itself. What does it consist of? Who's in it, and how long have they been in it, and what do they do? And I think because Erikson looks at professionalism as much broader than just teacher education, we've been able to concentrate what it is that all professionals need to know about kids and families. And then how does that apply to particular groups of kids and families, individuals and families? So what we've learned is something that everybody in the field needs to know about. And so I think those are some of the reasons why it's important to talk about the field and Erikson's role in it.
I've learned so much spending time with you. I've loved hearing your own stories as being a nursery school student and those memories being very clear for you, as well as learning about the field and how it's been regarded, how it's not been regarded. So I don't think that you have learned anything. I'm the one who's learning.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know what you were thinking when you came first of all to ask about early childhood education and the kinds of programs we have. Did you have a specific in mind? Did your child go to a particular kind of program?
Yeah, I have had interest because I now have a kindergartner and she was doing a home-based preschool ever since she was 2. And I was very deliberate in what I wanted. I didn't want her doing memorization to get into, a high-performing public school. I wanted her to play. I wanted her to know empathy. I listened to people who were in the industry and didn't, friends, and didn't say she has to read by this age. But it's raised questions for me about affordability, access. I think there's a whole lot of research that needs to be done on home-based preschools. I think that I had a great one because she had a degree and the kind of curriculum that she did, but there are so many that I passed, and I wonder, you and I've talked a lot about childcare versus early childhood
Education.
Right.
Yeah, and I wonder if you think at all about your contribution to what she learned. You give your children permission to learn in different places. And one of the things we sometimes forget is that if the families don't trust you, if the families don't think that you're doing a good job, children are less likely to learn what's being presented than if they go to school with the notion that Mrs. Smith is exactly what my mother would say you have to do. So the reinforcement of family and the role of family in the education of young children, I think is one of the things we've been skimpy about in most teacher education programs. We focused on the child, but we haven't focused on how do what families do affect what children learn in school.
We were just talking about people trying to get into high school and how that's worse than college, but I'm seeing people trying to get their kids into kindergarten. And what does early childhood mean? And I just saw on Facebook yesterday, and it's all this middle class angst. Someone saying, what do I have to do to prepare my child? And all these parents are saying, all these apps, all these worksheets. But there were early childhood educators who said, don't do any of that. Let your kid play and read to them at night.
Well, it's a good thing to do if you're doing what we call the informal curricula in between times. If when you are talking to your child and doing your cooking, you're talking about numbers and you're adding to the vocabulary about boiling and frying and sauteing, it makes a big difference than if while you're cooking, you're saying, go look at television. There are 5 kids in the kitchen and I can't cook dinner with 5 kids in the kitchen. So depending on how much time families have depending on what their interests are. Many people are not particularly interested in school-related skills and knowledge. They don't spend time helping their child understand different words, different numbers, different ways of looking at the world. So it's easy to forget that there's much about the education of your children that you're just doing automatically because you are educated. And how do we then help children who come from less educated families, who come from families who either are overwhelmed or too busy to give that kind of education? How do we help them learn what they need to know to be school successful? So think about your daughter, and then think about a child who comes from a family of 5 and a mother on minimum wage, and how different it might be in terms of what they're learning.
Yeah, and that was some of the feedback. Make learning just a part of your life, in the car, just living.
That's right, and you do it automatically because it's part of your life. But when it's not part of your life, when you have to do it intentionally, when you don't really have time to read every night because you have other things. You've got sewing and cooking and laundry and ironing and whatnot. You don't have time to sit and read a story every night. How do you, just getting kids bathed may be the limit of what you can manage. Mm-hmm. So how do we duplicate what you're giving at home and school to the family that needs to get it at school?
What makes Erikson a good catalyst for this podcast project?
Well, I think we're willing to be looked at and to criticize ourselves, so that when we've talked about what we do at Erikson, it's generally not cut in stone, but how we change as we have grown older and learn more. I think that our history of providing the quality of education that has led to leadership. Our students are very often in leadership positions. They're recognized by employers as being more broadly educated than many people are who've been through programs similar. This is true both for our social work students and for our education students, our child development students. They each have had a baseline of child development, but they've learned to apply it in a variety of different ways. And I think being cross-fertilized as professionals has been very valuable for them.
What do you want listeners to take away from this project?
I guess the basic principles of our educational program and why it's successful. Some understanding of the necessity of institutions to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining the better ideas that have carried it into the present. So you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but the advice we used to give that it's just fine for kids to play all day and use self-choice isn't as useful today for many children as it used to be. So when we didn't ask children to read in kindergarten, you didn't need to know the names of the letters. Now, no matter what group you come from, when you go to kindergarten, they're going to start you reading. You need to know the names of letters and the sounds that they make. So we've changed what we teach because the context in which children are being raised has changed. People are having fewer children and having them later. They are spending more time with their children. Everybody seems to be spending more time with their children. What implications does that have for what kids are learning or should learn? We find children under a lot of pressure. What kind of pressure are we able to relieve, and what kind of pressure can you not do anything about? The pandemic is the pandemic. You can't do anything that's going to shorten it except get inoculated. But we can, by how we present it to children, make it less of a risk factor. And there was some nice studies that were done during the war about what happened to children who stayed in the bombed out London with their parents as opposed to going to the countryside without their parents and with strangers. And the children who lived in the city did better afterwards than the kids who went to the country. So understanding things like that in child development, that child development is relevant and that we need to be using it and thinking about it. That doesn't mean that all kids that stay in bombed out shelters are going to do better than kids who live in the country. But it does say we have to think a little bit more carefully about things. And I think Erikson's notion of reflection and thinking about what are the contexts in which children live, as well as what are the developmental pushes that drive us and drive learning. I think both of those things are attributes of Erikson that the field needs to understand.
Thank you, Barbara.
Hi, this is Mike Olnick. I was an Erikson graduate, class of 1978. Erikson gave me a sense of purpose and mission. I always remember that Barbara Bowman said that we were to be leaders, and I have tried to do that for my entire career. I'm still working after 43 years, and I have been the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Childcare Resource Center in Southern California, one of the largest resource and referral as well as subsidy agencies that also does Head Start home visiting with a staff of over 1,000 people, and very proud to participate in anything Erikson is doing over the years. So thank you, Erikson, for all that you gave me, and I always sing your praises wherever I go.
Hello, Erikson. My name is Mary Sextra Black, and I'm from the class of 1974. I chose Erikson because I knew it was the place to go for a degree in early childhood education at that time. The teachers were national leaders, inspirational, and outstanding role models. I learned how children grow and develop. I learned how to ask probing questions, and I learned to respect each and every child's family, culture, and community. With my degree, I was able to join the faculty at Oakton College, where I worked in the teacher training program for a very long time. I was very proud of our students, many of whom have gone on for senior college degrees, and some have even graduated from Erikson. I'm grateful to Erikson for giving me the knowledge, the strategies, and the tools that allow me to train teachers and to provide for the well-being of children and their families. Thank you, Erikson.
I'm Cari Sacks, and I graduated Erikson in 1992 with a 1-year-old child on my hip as I walked down the grass pathway in Barbara Bauman's backyard to receive my diploma. And although that seems like a very long time ago, I know that everything I learned at Erikson has really stayed with me and helped me as I've done lots of different things throughout my life. At Erikson, you learn about being a human being, and you learn about the humanity we all share, and that is something that informs every step of the way when you leave here. So I have nothing but gratitude for the education that I received at Erikson. It's truly an incredible place.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Halpern, and I am an alumni from the class of 2009. I studied infancy and administration at Erikson, and Erikson has meant the world to me. I moved to Chicago to go to Erikson, and just the approach and the philosophy, the relationships, the experiences have taught me so much and have definitely shaped who I am today, so much so that I am now back at Erikson pursuing my PhD, and I also work there part-time. I love the community, and I am so excited about the direction Erikson is going in, and so thankful for everything that it has done for me and has taught me about the world and about children and about families and the importance of community, and I'm just grateful.
Jambo, my name is Judy Achieng. I am an Erikson alum from the class of 2008, and I studied child development administration. What makes Erikson so special is the stellar quality education and the opportunity to work with and be mentored by renowned faculty and experts in the field, as well as the chance to build lasting friendships and a huge network of like-minded colleagues. The education I received from Erikson has indeed opened doors for me and equipped me with a module to articulate my passion for working with children and translate that to a hands-on approach, something I would not have been able to do without Erikson.
So we're nearing the end of our program, and I'm thrilled to hand it over to the committee who made this event possible. Please welcome Erikson's 55th Anniversary Event Steering Committee members, Diane Meagher, Kathy Pick, Sandy Sterling, and Ikram Goldman.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. You're a wonderful example of the tremendous passion and vision Erikson students bring to helping children and families thrive.
Today's program has been wonderful. We have heard from extraordinary leaders. I'm thinking about all of the lives Erikson has touched and the collective impact of its work over the last 55 years. I really look forward to the next 55.
Again, thank you to today's sponsors for supporting Erikson students, plus children and families and communities that we serve. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in, honoring the history of Erikson and the preservation of the field.
Please, if you haven't yet, consider donating now. A gift at any level is an investment in Erikson and our kids, who are our collective future. You can make a gift on Erikson's website. We are grateful for your participation and look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope you learn more about the impact of Erikson in Chicago and across the country, and that you will walk with us into our next era of preparing leaders in the early childhood field. For more information on the podcast launch, please visit erikson.edu/podcasts. We look forward to you gathering with us in next year's luncheon on November 2nd, 2022.